Australia. My name is Chrissy, and today in this reading I thought I would just do an energy update for January the 15th. Now, I've had a lot of people ask me about different places such as Western Australia, Kazakhstan, Netherlands. There's so many people out there sort of watching that I thought I'd just do an energy update just to keep everybody sort of on track and keep fighting our good fights, because life at the moment is quite challenging for a lot of people right around the globe, and I think we can all relate to that. We've certainly got all the dramas going on about the Novak thing. He's currently had his visa cancelled again, and now their lawyers are fighting again, and this is just kind of an ongoing political statement, I would say. In my view, personally, this all comes back to power, which is what a lot of us are sort of fighting for now. So I'm just going to shut my eyes and we'll just get started, and I'll let my guides channel through to you and we'll see what comes up. So I'm getting visions of a guest list. So there's sort of like, it's like when you're going to organise a wedding or a party or something like that, and you're putting down all the names and you're getting ticked off. So it's like, who are we going to invite? Who are we not going to invite? Are we going to have them? Who are we going to sit together? I feel like there's a lot of this is going on at the current moment. There's a lot of this planning and organising, and this is to do with infrastructure. I feel like a lot of countries are doing a lot of planning. So there's a lot of planning going into their sort of landscape moving forward. So there's sort of, things will start to unfold, and I think they'll start to unfold pretty quickly, but there's going to be definitely a lot of this ticking of the boxes. And look, that's already happening obviously around the passports, but I think this is also going to be about venues. I mean, if you're living in countries where you're under really tight restrictions, I think you could still see that some things will get a little bit tighter, because remember, you've got to remember at the core of all these decisions and the things that are being made, that this is about power, and this is about control, and this is about getting control of the masses. This isn't about just getting everybody to conform, because you're always going to get that 20% that's going to resist, and they're going to sort of fight these things as well. So you're not going to get everyone to conform. So the way that they'll start to control is they'll start to tick these boxes, and they'll say, well, let's divide these places, so that some of the restaurants and things like this are going to start to have division now. You're going to see there's a place for the unvaccinated, there's a place for the vaccinated. And sadly, this is what's going on, and I've talked about this a lot. This is even happening in the social levels and the tiers of society. People are being put into their divisions now, and this is also about ticking those boxes, because it's going to have the wealthy and the elite, and I really believe that the middle class and the lower class are kind of getting sort of bundled together. And this is just something that I see happening, and it's becoming more and more obvious to me. I talk about it here in Australia, that when the pandemic was really peaking on the news, we only ever sort of heard about the lower socioeconomic areas in the middle class. We never were given information about the virus being in any of the more upper class suburbs. That was just never reported, which we know they would definitely have had it. So these are the examples I'm giving you about these ticking the boxes. There's going to be a lot more of that starting to happen. We're going to be starting to live a very regimented life, and I think if people are wanting to really fight for these freedoms now, they're going to have to really stand up and start to make a difference, because it's almost like these surges are starting to get people to lose their footing, and they're sort of losing their way and their direction, and that's that power is starting to override now. So we have to be very careful of sort of reining that back in, and standing in our own strengths, powers, our abilities. Incomes should have nothing to do with these things, but unfortunately I can see that that's getting stronger and stronger out there. Plus there's a lot of people who have just been wiped out. Their small businesses have been wiped out. People have lost their jobs. Contracts have been lost. It's just a never-ending. It's almost showing me like an avalanche, actually, is the word that comes to mind. So it's almost like there's been an avalanche of job loss, avalanche of businesses going into closure. People are going into receivership. There's just a disaster has come from basically this pandemic. I'm just going to touch a little bit on Western Australia here. In Australia, somebody asked me about Western Australia. I think you're going to be moving into that real human rights category now. I feel like people are going to start wanting to get their human rights back. In Western Australia, you've been very locked down, and I know as an Australian that you've been very isolated, living on the other side of the East Coast. You're on the West Coast, and that has been very challenging for you guys because the borders get open, then they get shut. They open, then shut. And he's almost like living in 0 cases over there, and you can't keep blocking people from the rest of the world, basically, not just Australia, but the rest of the world, living in a safe little bubble. That's just not going to be viable to the state going forward, meaning Western Australia. So I think people are going to start to really stand up for their human rights. I feel like people are wanting to fight those good causes now. People have had enough. They've been suppressed for a very long time over in Western Australia, and I feel like people really haven't been heard, and it's a scary feeling when you're feeling sort of isolated in your madness. And this isn't just for unvaccinated. This is for vaccinated. This is for different races. This is for people right across Western Australia. I think there's going to be a lot of this hostility kind of forming and coming up in people because the anger, the hurts, the deprivation, people feel deprived of their liberties now. So I think if you're living in Western Australia, that's something that you really got to focus on now, is those human rights and getting things moving forward. I feel like your protests are going to get started. People are going to strike. Mandates are a real problem over there. I feel like people are not going to accept these things very well. So I feel like there's going to be almost like an uprising, but it's going to be about human rights. I don't think there's going to be a lot of volatility. I think there's just going to be a lot of people wanting to be heard, and a lot of those voices are going to try and speak out now. And I feel like Western Australia is actually a pretty calm sort of state. It's not, I don't feel there's a lot of hostility. Like I said, I feel like these things moving forward are going to be done in a very methodical and organised way. So I think you've got to really stand up and support your fellow man over there in Western Australia and not hide away. It's very easy to hide away and try and remove yourself from these experiences, but that's not going to make the changes. So if you want to stand up and fight for human rights, go for it. That's my advice to anyone living in Western Australia. Now, I've had someone wanting to know about Kazakhstan and Pakistan. Now, I get really breathless even thinking about that. It's a very overwhelming energy there. Things are very volatile, they're very extreme. The hatred and the anger is beyond measure now. I feel like there's no quick-term solution. And what they're saying is that when two energies come together like that, which is like you've got your government and your policing and these kind of things going on over here, and you've got the people fighting for, again, their human rights, which we all have a right to freedom and a right to live our lives in peace and harmony. This is a very, very volatile energy, and it's very hard, and I've talked about this before. It reminds me of a tug of war, and literally it's almost like a war, but it's about the rope keeps getting pulled. So it gets pulled one way and it gets pulled the other way, and no one's kind of giving an inch. So there's pulling, and there's that center line that they keep almost going over, but then it goes back, and then it almost goes over, and then it goes back. So you've got this real push pull, and it's an energy where nothing's actually going anywhere. And I talk about that as well in some of my other videos, how when you've got that resistance and that pulling, it's like this. So it's like almost a battery. When you've got that energy that's repelling, nothing's coming together. So I feel like for Pakistan and Kazakhstan and countries that are going through that real tumultuous stage at the moment, you're going to have to ride that wave for a little bit longer, because things aren't coming together. It's this repelling. So the repelling energy, like the batteries, it's that repelling energy. And it's sort of showing like both sides to me are festering. So there's this festering, and until the valves are released off that sort of pressure energy, I feel like this could go on for quite a few months yet. This sort of really volatile, confusing, chaotic energy. And I know that's probably not what a lot of people want to hear. But like I always say, sometimes things happen for reasons. So you've got to kind of look at the resistance as a positive thing sometimes, because sometimes from negative experiences we can end up having positive outcomes. And that's again getting back to that human rights and fighting for our freedoms and fighting for justice and fighting for those things. Over the years it's been proven that sometimes if we can really stand up, we can make a difference in this world. So I think that's the advice really, to just kind of keep going. Don't hide away. Keep standing up for your human rights, because this is really crucial now in all around the globe. It doesn't matter whether you're going through really tumultuous, horrific experiences like some of these countries like Kazakhstan are, or you're just having that fight of not wanting to get the jab, or you're fighting with friends and family. It doesn't matter. It's the same thing. It's this sort of repelling energy that many people around the globe are going through. And so that's just something I wanted to touch on today. I really get the message that we have to believe and trust in this process. So these huge things that are going on around the globe, and for anyone that watches my videos, I do talk about my 2021 video a lot, because I talked about the separation and divide, and we can clearly see now that that's come to fruition, and we're getting separated from friends and family. This is being forced upon us. We're trying to rebuild bridges, but that's kind of becoming very challenging. We're feeling very isolated. So this is something that I still feel is being addressed at the moment. People are still feeling very isolated. They're still scared. There's a lot of fear. The hurts, like I said, are rising up in people. There's a lot of old energies that are dark and tormenting. So if you're suffering any of these things out there, you've kind of got to somehow find a way to let these things rise and sort of purge out of your body, because we don't want to hang on to and harbor these feelings. Sometimes we've got to learn, even when there's chaos around us, we've got to kind of learn to stop and let those things go. Now, I've got a lot of videos on there that can help you around that. I've got meditations, and I've got many other tools and tips and tricks on how you can go about releasing challenging energies, because when you suppress energy in your body, and hatred and anger and hurts, they become very toxic, and they can become physical ailments. And I talk about that a lot as well, because things can internalize back into your body. So you don't want that to happen. You want to, start to free yourself up from fear. People might have fear around the virus. I know a lot of older people, and people can be quite scared of the things that are going on in these current energies. So you've got to release the fear, release the anxiety. You don't have to go into those places just because you're being fed that on the news and the media. They're not always facts. That's been proven over the years, that sometimes the things we're being fed aren't always the truth. Some is, some isn't. And I think you've got to look at things with a really open mind as well in this current year that we're sort of starting off in 2022. You've got to have a very open mind. I still get that there's a lot of advances in technology. I talked about the robots in the production of cars. Obviously, we're seeing a lot more robot things on television. They seem to be planting a lot of seeds. I feel like they're preparing us for a lot of things that are coming. That's something that I'm definitely seeing. And that, again, as much as we have to advance with technology, I think that's also subliminally something that can overwhelm people, because it's like that loss of jobs. If they're going to start doing this in the car industry and industries such as that, I know that can really come to a huge amount of job loss. So people are kind of looking at, well, what is coming this year? There's a lot coming at us, and people are feeling very bombarded. Now, they're saying that these battles are for the brave. So they're showing me kind of Mel Gibson in that movie, Braveheart, for anybody that's seen that. He sort of fought sort of to the death, and he was never going to give up in that movie. And that's kind of what they're showing me. They're saying, like, put your face paint on, get your shield, and get ready for these battles. Because I feel like 2022, there's going to be a lot of battles. They might not be huge battles. For some countries, they certainly are. But they might just be small battles. It might be like you are battling with family and friends, and you're just so frustrated by everything. But you've got to keep yourself strong. So it's by keeping yourself protected, having that shield, putting the faceplate on for camouflage, representing for example, your country. I know here with the whole Novak thing, it's been beautiful to see that the Serbians have come out and really supported him around the refugee camps. Maybe that's going to be a positive thing because it's going to highlight the refugee issues here in Australia. I think that's something good that could come from all this, especially with a major celebrity such as Novak Djokovic. But that's what they're saying, you know, the Serbians were out dancing and they were having joy, even in those moments of stress and the unknown. They were dancing, and this is the way they kind of deal with things. So these are the sort of positive things that we need to be taking into the future and into 2022 now. Get your shield up, get ready, and get ready to face some battles, because I think we're all going to have battles in this year of 2022. It's not going to be smooth sailing. And how are you going to stand in that battle? How are you going to prepare yourself is probably the message that's kind of coming through. So look, that's all I've got for today, for the 15th of January. Hopefully my video is helping you. Please comment. I love hearing from where you guys are. We all need to start supporting each other around the globe, because we're all going through different journeys and they're sort of very turbulent at the moment. Subscribe to my channel. Hit those like buttons, of course. And take care. Be well, and I will see you in that next video. Bye.